Welcome back to Close Up. Poll after poll shows that Granite Staters rank one issue above all others: housing. And it isn't even close in terms of how far of an outlier it now is as the top concern facing our state, according to those surveyed by UNH. Now, whether it's the lack of homes in the market, the eye-popping prices of the few that are, or the entire generation of young people who say they simply can't afford to be here in New Hampshire, the state does seem to be at an inflection point of sorts when it comes to housing. So joining us this morning is Rob Dapis, the Executive Director of New Hampshire Housing. So Rob, thanks for being here with us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
You know, based on the survey, it shows just how important this topic is. It's interesting. I actually went back to a conversation we had on this very set back on 2023. I rewatched the tape of it, and it was striking to me how applicable almost everything we talked about then 2 years ago still is today. So I'm wondering, in your view, is the state moving with the speed and urgency that's needed right now to meet the moment when it comes to the housing crisis?
We have made progress since the last time we spoke, Steve, but are we moving fast enough? I would say probably not for the families that are struggling with housing costs and everything else that's affecting them. You know, we have seen increases in construction, particularly in multifamily, coming out of the pandemic. But whether that's been enough to really improve affordability, especially for low and moderate income families, we really don't think that it has filtered down enough to help them. And now there are reasons to be concerned that that momentum may be stalling as costs increase with higher labor costs and higher material costs and continued challenges with permitting and approvals.
So I always hate to start off with, like, you know, here are all the problems and here are none of the solutions that we found. Are there wins we can point to in the last 6 to 12 months that you say, look, this is the progress really happening? Absolutely.
You know, I think there are municipalities that have really seen the importance of housing and keeping their community vibrant and their economy strong, and our friends at the Department of Business and Economic Affairs recognized housing champions, you know, municipalities across the state that are making more housing-friendly policies. We need a lot more municipalities to do that. I think we're also seeing some of the fruits come of the funding that has been put into creating more affordable housing. And so there are projects across the state that are under construction that are going to provide affordable and accessible housing for people who really need it.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, we look at the numbers, and they are still very stark. New Hampshire Association of Realtors saying for the May numbers, for the median single-family home in the state, $540,000. That matched the all-time record. Condos now selling for a record in New Hampshire, too, median of $450,000. That is also now a record. Meanwhile, the number that struck me was the fact that families that earn $100,000 can only afford 19% of the homes currently on the market in New Hampshire. So, you know, you mentioned some of the headwinds we are now facing, perhaps with increased building costs. And in many ways, this was seen as a year that was supposed to be a turnaround year. You know, we were finally getting a few years away from COVID. We were finally seeing lower interest rates, or expecting to see that. We were expecting to see more houses on the market, at somewhere in the range of 7% increase in single-family homes. So what can be done, in your view, to jumpstart from where we are the relief that a lot of people thought may have been on the way, say, this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who most need relief and most need a place to sleep at night are people at the lower end of the income spectrum. And so we need to create more affordable housing. And I think, you know, I wish that the state budget that they were working on included more funding for affordable housing. It doesn't, and that's too bad, and there will be another opportunity in the future. But I think it means that all of us who are involved in this industry, in this community, need to be laser focused on lowering the cost of housing and lowering the cost of providing housing. We've had some good progress on the state level. The governor has led on that, and the budget includes permitting reforms that will streamline that process at the state level. A lot of the barriers, though, remain at the local level. And so apart from those housing champions, I think the folks in the local communities who see the impact and see the problem really have an opportunity now to work together and lower those barriers and encourage housing development that's going to provide more opportunities for young people, more opportunities for people who want to age in place, more opportunities for people for whom, you know, a single-family home might not be what they need.
Yeah, I mean, we heard from the legislature all year that this was going to be a very tight budget, but you mentioned, in your view, kind of like the lack of what it seems to be really big measures for affordable housing. Was that a miss by the legislature, in your view, this year?
I don't envy the legislators the job that they had to do this year, and so you know, they did have to make some very difficult decisions. At the same time, we know how impactful that funding is in terms of providing housing opportunities for people of New Hampshire and in terms of leveraging federal funding. So certainly I would have liked to see more investment in the Affordable Housing Fund, but there's some in there, and we'll do everything we can with what there is.
We also saw the legislature this year trying to find some solutions when it comes to zoning and how that plays into the lack of housing in some places, especially now, though, we're seeing this interplay between state government and local government saying, whoa, we want our local control when it comes to zoning in our area, especially rural communities, saying it's going to change the entire nature of their communities. So how does this play out in your mind? Is this a situation where it's going to be town by town, zoning board by zoning board making these changes, or does there have to be some top-down approach coming from the state?
Well, the state certainly has a role, and I mean, it's the state that grants municipalities the right to restrict private property rights by telling people what they can and cannot build through zoning ordinances. So this debate is not new, and the results of the legislative session are a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But I think what hasn't changed is there is an opportunity for municipalities that see the problem but haven't yet made changes to their zoning ordinances to take action now.
Let's talk about the supply side real quick. I was looking into the 2024 housing report from the BEA. You know, early 2000s, we saw about 9,000 units a year coming online based on the building permits. Most recent data year, under 5,000 units. Of course, after 08, it went to pretty much nothing. But what can we do? Like, how do we get back to, say, like an early 2000 style of building where we're getting 9,000, 10,000 new building permits a year?
Well, it's not going to be one silver bullet, and so I think increased funding would help. The permitting reforms that I mentioned are also going to help, and lowering zoning barriers are also going to help. The fact is, there are a lot of headwinds that have nothing to do with any of those things. I mentioned the labor shortage, and you know, tariffs could affect material prices, and so some of that stuff is still up in the air, and it's hard to see exactly what the impact will be. You know, what we can do in New Hampshire is making sure that the barriers to the builders and developers who want to create the homes for the people who need them are as low as possible.
And how about when it comes to young people in housing? I mean, this is really affecting everybody at different life cycles. You know, so if housing is really hard to come by, then condos become more expensive, then apartments become more expensive for those people out of the housing market. At the same time, in one of your organization's most recent reports, you point out the demographic challenges New Hampshire is also facing. We're the second oldest state demographically in the country. We need young people coming in here and choosing to build roots here and make a family here and create businesses here. So what is the pathway you see to trying to allow young people to choose New Hampshire as an option and to remain here once they decide to grow their families and hit those different life stages?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and there certainly is a demographic angle, and we hear it from our friends at Stay Work Play and the BIA, who are also really concerned with workforce and young professionals. And you know, I guess to start on the positive side, there's a lot of economic opportunity. There are a lot of great jobs. We all love the outdoors here in New Hampshire, so it makes sense that people want to be here. But housing affordability is an issue, and to the degree, you know, it's not that nobody is finding an opportunity to buy a home or get into home ownership, rent a great place. We do see that happening, and we work with lenders and realtors across the state to offer down payment assistance for those who can't come up with a down payment because they're paying a lot in rent. But it's a real challenge, and we see a higher percentage of first-time home buyers than ever before are getting help from family and friends, and that's wonderful when it works, but it's not available to everybody. And so I think the more that we can do to offer programs like our down payment assistance that help people achieve home ownership if they don't have those resources, the better it's going to be for our state.
And then one other piece we haven't always talked about here, but I found interesting, how much of the issue right now with New Hampshire housing is tied to investors getting into this market, buying up the single family, the multifamily homes in New Hampshire? Saw some data that in 2023, CoreLogic reported that 18 to 22% of homes in New Hampshire went to investors, not to households. What is that doing to our market writ large? Yeah,
it's hard to say, and like a lot of things, it's pretty localized in a sense. The investors that have gotten a lot of press in terms of their effect on the housing market are largely concentrating in the Sun Belt, where they'll buy whole neighborhoods and convert them to build to rent. We haven't seen that kind of activity. A lot of the investors who are buying homes in New Hampshire are small businesses, and they may be putting them out to rent. Some of them may be short-term rentals, and of course that's been an issue in some municipalities. But to say that that's a driving factor in the affordability problems that we're we're experiencing, I think, is probably overstating the case.
Yeah, okay. It's something we're going to keep watching, of course, and this is an issue that's not going away anytime soon. But, Rob, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
When we come back, the latest on the developments with the state budget from Concord, right after this.